You guys are there. Well, good morning, everyone in the Mountain Time Zone and Pacific Time Zone, and good afternoon, everyone in Central and Eastern Time Zone. This is Joseph Antel, continuing my series on adjuvant protocols from healing. These are protocols from my new book, just released in August, and a not just an explanation, but an overview as to why I chose the particular products I chose and why I chose them. So this gives you that deeper inroads into how to create a protocol and how I've learned to create protocols over 48 years now, using the principles of Dr. Lee and my other teachers, John Courtney, and their teachers and friends, colleagues. And of course, all around the premise of using the accurate vitamin, mineral, protein, i.e. protomorphogen, the tissue-specific nuclear protein. And today we're going to actually look at some herbs, which I don't talk too much about herbs, a little bit, but herbs are pretty significant in this subject of type 1 and type 2 diabetes. You will see correlations and similarities in the protocol because you're working with a similar pattern. And the understanding of how to apply nutrition is very similar. So we know that type 1 diabetes is unfortunately the breakdown of the Isles of Langerhans, the endocrine cells. Remember, the pancreas is an endocrine and an exocrine gland. So it secretes, as we know, enzymes and other digestive substances, and it secretes hormones, glucagon and insulin in particular, right into the bloodstream. Now, in February, I'm going to do a whole hour and a half on the pancreas. So I'm not going to get into that too much today because I want to get right into our subject. But it's important to remember that in type 1 diabetes, by the time that situation has gotten to its extreme, which it is extreme, you've lost a number of these endocrine cells, these beta cells in particular. And unfortunately, the number is pretty concerning with type 1 diabetes. It is hard to bring that back to normal. Type 2 is much easier if a person will stay on the straight and narrow, but unfortunately type 1, because if you understand that we have approximately a million of these pancreatic endocrine cells in the pancreas. Hard to believe, isn't it? But nevertheless true. And you've destroyed, and a good part of them, I don't know what that ratio would be. It is hard to bring them back. So the concern with type 1 is to keep the person to whatever degree they're at in their severity, and maybe bring back more of a control, which is possible. Now, Dr. Lee taught, and I tried to find the quote, and I forgot to call Lynn because she remembers just about everything I've taught over the years, or has written it down. He said that the number one cause of type 1 diabetes, type 1, is, especially in juveniles, if it occurs early in life, it's parasites. Now, whether that has been proven to be true or not, but in the cases that I have worked with, when they tested, the person did have parasites. Now, that's not a muscle test. Please do not test for parasites using muscle testing. It's not accurate. Use your stool purge tests from Diagnostics or other companies of your choice and find out what you're working with as early on as possible. Excuse me, I got a little dry throat there. So that is what that is the core of what I want to say about type 1 diabetes before I get into the products. Type 2 diabetes really relates to lifestyle. Now, as tragic as the amount of diabetes is, it has a lot to do with how a person lives and the deficiencies that they come into life with or create in their lives. I was over at Kinko's earlier this morning, just scanning a couple of things for the class today. And a gentleman came in and he grabbed a Coke and a candy bar. This was at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I just thought to myself, what an interesting story or analogy to use. Because this is or tends to be the consciousness that we can just get away with these things, to get away with these types of lifestyle, not exercising, eating devitalized food, and the amount of sugar. Now, other teachers have told you about that, Dr. Gaeta and Dr. Keppel and others. You can get all the statistics from them. I did not get into statistics today because I wanted to make sure that we got into our topic for sure. Whenever you're working with the pancreas, of course, as I said in the beginning, we want to make sure that you're using the accurate vitamin. And of course, I didn't put Cataplex G in here, but Cataplex B Core is your main range of B vitamins that didn't get into the PowerPoint today, but I will get those in there when I clean up the PowerPoint a little bit more. The mineral is chromium. Now, you could also, and many of you are thinking right now, well, what about zinc? And that would be true. So that could be added in, or you could write that in your notes if you've got my book open. And then, of course, the organ-specific protomorphogen is pancreatrophin. So both of these types of diabetes, by the time they have reached a point where you need medical assistance, both of them are, in fact, now considered autoimmune. Definitely type 1 diabetes. And then, of course, the herb that is so crucial, there are 2 herbs actually, so you can also write this in your notes, is Gymnema, which we'll talk about a little later in our discussion, and milk thistle, silymarin. Now, the Meteor product is now called milk thistle. It used to be called silymarin, but you will see how much the liver is involved. So I've given you a number of links, and I wanted to go through some of these really quickly. This is for your homework, for your deeper reading. And because I know a lot of you are interested in continuing to learn and to learn how Dr. Lee, as I say, and others approach this. But remember the 2 major hormones that the pancreas releases, which is so crucial, and the balance of those, the balance is the key word to understand how this really works. Now, I'm not going to read from this. I'm just going to just say my own overview of this. So glucagon is released, that hormone is released into the bloodstream, and that causes the liver to convert glucagon. So what is glucagon? These are big words, and some of you are familiar with them, some are not. You're not. That glucagon is stored sugar. Where is that sugar stored? It's stored in the liver and in the muscles primarily. So glucagon causes the liver to convert glucagon into glucose, which is released into the bloodstream from the liver, or as I say, the muscles, but primarily the liver. So we know that glucose is the fuel that stokes the cellular fire. There would be no life in the body without glucose. But like any fire, if it is out of control, then the house or the whatever facility or building will be destroyed. And so it is in our bodies. If there's too much sugar in the cellular network, i.e. the vascular system and the nervous system in particular, but especially the vascular system. This is why people lose their limbs. This is why they lose their sight. They can lose brain function because that fire has to be controlled. And of course, that's where we bring in insulin. But before that, remember that this glucose is the fuel that stokes the cellular flame. But the thyroid, as we considered a few weeks ago, manages that action. So I'm not going to go into the thyroid today, but remember, the cooperation between these different endocrine glands is highly significant. They must all be working in unison, in communication with one another. So this cellular fire that is stoked from sugar, from glucose, as I say, comes from liver. It's stored in the muscles. And this is why, by the way, when diabetics get up in the morning, their sugar tends to be high in the morning. That's when a lot of times they will read their sugar in the morning, because that sugar gets packed away in the muscles at night when they're not active. And in the morning, when they get up and start moving around, that sugar gets released into the blood. So this is why at the very end today, if I get to it, but if I don't, remember this, that Dr. Lee and Mark Anderson and I have used this over the years with diabetics. If you use cardiotrophin, and it is in my book, it's in my book under the type 2 diabetic, especially. Let me see if it's in the type 1. Hold on, I got them both right here. I don't have it in the type 1, but the type 2. If you give them that before bed, if you give them like 3 cardiotrophin on an empty stomach before bed, or 4, in the morning, their sugar will not be as high. And it's amazing that Dr. Lee spoke about this in one of his writings, and we've used it over the years pretty effectively, because all of this plays a part. There are so many factors once the immune system is after the pancreas, if it's after, especially the pancreas, but the liver, the pituitary, the adrenals, that all play a part in this. You've got to have as many helpful nutrients and glandulars as possible. So, by the way, glucagon, that hormone, do you know what triggers the release of that? When you eat protein. This is why the first thing anyone should put into their mouth in the morning, maybe a supplement. Sure, a lot of us take the protomorphogens when we first get up. That's when you're supposed to take them on that empty stomach. And those are nuclear proteins. But the first food should be protein in the morning. An egg, even some cheese, some nuts, if not a big breakfast eater, a shake without a lot of sugar in it. And my shake in my book has no sugar, zero. I use Inositol as a sweetener, which I'll show you if I have time at the end here. Inositol also helps with diabetes mellitus. So, which is, by the way, diabetes mellitus is simply sugar diabetes. Okay. So, just so you know what that is. Now, so that's enough on glucagon and how that works. Now insulin, which is, this is the big, conversation hormone to have. But we have to make sure that we understand both so that that dance between those two can be a beautiful dance, a balanced dance. One last piece on glucagon that I forgot is that its concentration increases in the blood 4 to 5 times during exercise. And that's why when the release has exhausted itself from the liver and the muscles, then what does the body do? It starts to take it out of the fat. Yes, stored fat, right? That's adipose. That's where you want to get that energy from eventually. That's how people lose weight. That's how people get their weight off. That's how individuals can keep their blood sugar imbalanced. Now, insulin helps the control of the amount of sugar that is being used and oversees the mechanism that helps it to be burned effectively. So it can increase the storage of glucose into the fat cells. And therefore, it controls the rate of metabolism of most carbohydrates. So insulin is very important. Too much is not good. Now, I'm more concerned to teach you this balance between the two than about the insulin sensitivity. I think practitioners have gone down that road. And if the balance of all the mechanisms are right, the cells do not resist insulin. So, and we'll get into that a little bit, but so remember that too much insulin can lead to arterial blockages and a fatty liver. So even if the person isn't a type 1 or especially a type 2 diabetic, they can still have a fatty liver, and you can rest assured that this is a factor. So so that's all I wanted to say about insulin. I guess the other thing that I would say that it really, too much insulin can really affect mental energy and focus by slowing down the energy for the brain cells. So, which again is the glucose regulating factor. So problems with mood, depression, irritability, mental stress, anxiety, memory, the sense of well-being can be primarily an overproduction of insulin. So, and this is why you can see, and I was pretty good friends with, not friends, but I knew Robert Atkins, Bob Atkins, and one of his gifts to humanity was the diet that he created. Because if you want to see how to balance these two hormones, is get into a high protein diet, high fat diet. Now we've got the we've got the paleo diet and the other diet that relates to eating more fat. But you have to be careful that you don't create an imbalance with that high fat diet. You must make sure that there's adequate amounts of protein. But you'll see it in yourself, you see it in the clients, if they undertake this even for a while, even if it is a ketogenic type diet, you'll see that they will reduce weight. So because if there's lower carbs, insulin is lowered, and the fat storage is reduced dramatically. So, and when this happens, you also activate the exocrine part of the pancreas. It makes that more efficient. And the action, especially of the enzyme lipase, that also breaks down fat. And so I'll get into that more with my review of the pancreas itself. But I think you will enjoy this article, reading it through, and they explain very well what I just said. I abbreviated it in my own words, but you can look at it and describing it. So let's see. How do I go back here? Monica, how do I get back to just this right here? Let's try that. Yes, okay. Now, I also gave you an article on insulin sensitivity, which is the big thing now, and the ways you can do that: exercise, sleep, reducing stress, losing some weight. I mean, they go into fiber, which a lot of you already know. So I don't want to teach you what you already know. I want to share with you maybe possibly what you don't know. So the other thing that I wanted to say about, and I looked up some things for you, is about this problem with metformin. So metformin, I'm not even gonna, well, I'll just open this for a minute, but the FDA is still recalling this. So this was 11/4/2020. So if you're not aware of this, you need to be aware. And especially the slow release metformin medications, you need to make sure if your clients, if you know they're diabetic, which you should, in your intake, and they're on these slow release because they have too much of this NDMA. And guess what? Causes cancer. So this gives you a whole article on this so you can review it and the problems they're having with this. So, yeah. So let's get into our triad, the main three products. So I'm sorry, the copy isn't great on this. I'll try to improve. Oh, it's not too bad here. And I'll look at the notes printed out and see if they're good enough that you can get it. So what did Dr. Lee say about the primary vitamin for regulating carbohydrate? Poor muscle tone, a lactic acid buildup. So these are your people that, as I said, they with diabetes, both kinds, they do not move enough. They don't exercise enough. And it is really the number one action step that I showed you on my chart. I have an action step is walking. They don't have to get in and join a gym, and people spend all that money and time and energy. All they have to do is put their coat on and go out the door. Even walking 20 minutes to a half to anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour once or twice a day is really the best. Now, my clients with diabetic issues, I always had them walk after every meal. Now, obviously, after breakfast is the best unless they're working. And then in the evening, especially in the summertime. But even if they can only, everyone pretty much eats lunch, get out after lunch. But walk after you've eaten. You don't have to do a brisk walk. You can just walk 20-minute miles, and that's it. It's easy to do. And so these were the issues that Dr. Lee really felt related to the B vitamin to carbohydrate metabolism. And this is out of Vitamin News. If you don't have that book, I didn't put a photo of that, which I will. Here is, Dr. Lee's teachings and writings on the vitamin B complex, necessary to maintenance of normal metabolic processes such as carbohydrate metabolism, lactic acid excess, cellular respiration, disturbed carbohydrate metabolism, diabetes mellitus. See it? Lactic acid excess, slow or labored respiration. If a person says, wow, I get out of breath easily, and they get on some Cataplex B core and they begin to walk, I don't care if they just walk initially around the block and then increase that every week, go a little further till you work up to at least an hour a day. That will all go away. They will not have labored breathing. Now, this is out of an article which we'll scan and get to you, put it in with the notes as another file for you. This is what Judith DeCava had to say. B complex is very important to anyone with blood sugar or insulin imbalances. Thiamine B1/B4 aids in glucose metabolism. Riboflavin, now here, this was your B side, right? B1, B4, now your G side. Either one you can use. You wrote that in your notes. Riboflavin B2 metabolism is normal in diabetics. Niacin B3 promotes pancreatic beta cell integrity. Now, she has all references to things that she says in her articles. Stimulates pancreatic insulin secretion and increases insulin sensitivity within cells. That is all from the Cataplex G, that side. Some diabetics are able to reduce or stop insulin treatment with supplementation, but dependence on insulin resumes within a year if discontinued. Niacinamide can be extended, can extend the honeymoon or remission phase, indicative of some pancreatic function after initial diagnosis of diabetes. Maybe halt disease progression and sometimes help restore pancreatic function so insulin is no longer needed. Wow. Now, I had forgotten this. I didn't realize how much the B vitamin cascade. Now, she's specifically talking about B2, B3, which is the feature of Cataplex. G is in gold. I didn't realize the impact. Synthetic niacin. Now, remember, standard process does not make synthetic niacin and put it in their products. It's niacinamide. It's a food grade concentration. Synthetic niacin causes insulin resistance in normal subjects. Only the natural form is protective. Many diabetics have low blood levels of pyridoxine, that's B6, even lower if there is nerve damage. This is why anything with neuropathies or any type of poor peripheral circulation, you want to think of B6. Even lower if there is nerve damage. Reduced levels of B6 can cause a significant increase in insulin and glucose levels, problems with amino acid transport, and possibly protein synthesis. Diabetics have a high rate of protein breakdown. Pyridoxine improves glucose tolerance and insulin sensitivity. Vitamin B12 is another B vitamin, is required for normal function of nerve cells and can reduce nerve damage. Some diabetics slow deficiency or disordered metabolism of biotin. Again, there's your cataplex B core is highest in biotin, particularly in the presence of neuropathy. Biotin is needed to process glucose. So she goes on here. The other that I wanted to just read is Inositol, associated with B complex, is needed for normal nerve function. And both choline and inositol aid in the liver glucose metabolism and nerve health. There you are. Now, there's other things. She goes into Gymnema here, and you can look at that, that slide. So that's the B vitamin. Enough about that. And let's look at this wonderful article that I put the whole article in here, but I think I'm going to give you a PDF of this so it's clearer for you too. Relates to the chromium, the glucose tolerance factor. Now remember, and he goes into it, I believe, in this article, or you can look it up. You don't want chromium picolinate. It will not work. And there are some really negative outcome from people using chromium picolinate. It has to be a chromium that comes from yeast, as he says here. As it has been seen as structural schematic diagram, the organic arrangement is a metallovitamin similar to vitamin B12, rather than a metallo enzyme. Vitamin B12 has the center of cobalt. That is the key to vitamin B12, whereas vitamin GTF has chromium, glucose tolerance factor. Scientists at the Human Nutrition Laboratories, Beltsville, Maryland, have studied crystallized GTF from brewer's yeast to X-ray analysis, and as a result, we're able to determine the extract configuration, and here it is. And extensive studies have been shown that chromium bound in an organic form, picolinate is not an organic form, as part of the glucose tolerance factor, has as its principal function the potentiation of insulin. So you can read through this article. It's very good. And Dr. Murray, of course, was Mark's teacher. I've learned from Dr. Murray. I never had his wonderful commentary and lectures in person in my life, but Mark Anderson and others have. So let me see if there's something here. Back in 1959, Swartz and Mertz found that chromium deficiency is characterized by 1, impaired growth, 2, reduced lifespan, 3, corneal lesions, and 4, defective sugar metabolism. It was noted that at the time that diets deficient in chromium experience glucose being removed from the circulation only half as fast as normal. Obviously, GTF working in conjunction with insulin. Now, what I learned and what I've experienced and what I teach is the key to the glucose tolerance factor is it makes the expression of insulin more efficient. You don't have to use as much at the cellular level. So that would be my take on this. And he may go into this. I didn't reread the whole article here. So there are your two areas. And then I also wanted to, and as I say, I didn't get a chance to put these in exact order, but I want to go back to about zinc. And I gave you an article on zinc, I think, somewhere here. I gave you one on chromium, and this is zinc. This is very important to understand. And what I have taught you over the years is that zinc helps in the, oh, how come I can't down, how do I open this? Oh, here it is right here, sorry. Zinc, from what I've learned and how I've used it, prevents the death of beta cells. So here is where I said about diabetes 1, where there's been so much endocrine, what they call the islets damage and destruction. Here is where this is a key mineral to prevent more of that happening. Okay. And again, I'll let you read through this. And let's see. Oh, yes, here's what I wanted to read to you. Pancreatic, those beta cells, are known to contain within the cell structure itself very high concentrations of zinc compared with various other cells. Well, that sentence alone tells us, in particular, insulin secretion granules, secretory granules, have been shown to have the highest zinc content within all of the beta cells. So, and of course, you can read more of this and the studies. So in either case of type 1 or type 2, you have to have specific nutrients, and zinc is key along with the chromium. And it doesn't ever take away the fact that other minerals are not needed. In fact, I'll show you at the end of this, and if I don't get to it, there's an article at the end of this, my PowerPoints, talks about magnesium being highly significant in type 1 and especially type 2 diabetes. So now let's get to the third part, the protein part. Now, this article was back in 1924. This is out of, again, my favorite book, Practical Endocrinology by Henry Hadower. And you see, I use quotes from this all of the time, because this is information that you're never going to get unless you read the book. Now, Saline River Press, again, you can download that. You can download that from Saline River Press free of charge. It's 700 pages. So So remember that insulin was introduced in 1922. But as you know, just giving someone insulin is not going to do it. And if you know the principles or some of the principles of pure morphology, you'll also realize that unless you remove the burden of the pancreas to heal, the diabetes is going to continue and worsen. So you have to remove the burden. You have to create the lifestyle that focuses on that. The person with diabetes, no matter which kind, they have to change their life. They can never go back. And maybe you have, I've had several clients in my time that I got them all squared away. Not me, but the supplements in my guidance with diet, exercise, supplements. They were good, but they had to stay on the straight and narrow. They were good for the rest of their lives. But they went back to it. They went back to the sugar and the carbs and the caffeine and all of that because they said, well, I'll just take the insulin. Sad, isn't it? That a person wouldn't make that choice. But when you're younger, that's okay. But as you get older, after you hit that 60 mark and start to really enter that third part of your life, that's when you see the real breakdown. So what was Dr. Harrower from these doctors looking at using glandulars from all over the world? The laboratory is of outstanding value in the diagnosis of a study of diabetes mellitus. The examination of the urine for specific gravity, sugar, acetone, and diacetic acid is also well known as needed only in merest outline. Monica, can you remove those lines from the screen? Not sure why that's happening. Thanks. Hyperglycemia, the estimation of the estimation of the blood sugar is the most valuable index of pancreatic endocrine dysfunction. You see, they were just realizing back in the early 90s that this problem is a pancreatic issue. Now, they know more now, and you'll see that they were seeing other things as we go on. This test may be carried out in several ways, which are fully outlined in a laboratory manual. The variations in blood sugar are an invariable guide to carbohydrate tolerance, which not entirely under the control of the pancreatic internal secretion of the Langerhanism hormone. It is regulated largely by it. But see, already they knew that there was something going on, not just with the secretion, but the organ itself. That's why I put this in here. They didn't know it then. They would come to know it. They were already seeing that it was an autoimmune. The immune system, again, was attacking the pancreas, that organ, both the endocrine part and the exocrine part. So here is Dr. Lee's word, his clinical considerations: wasting, upper back pain, alcoholic stools, healing reactions, diabetic ulcers, and of course, diabetic tendency. Now, you are all familiar with this wonderful product. There's nothing against this product in any way, Diaplex. But if you're going to go after and really guide an individual on that path back to full recovery, mainly from type 2 diabetes, not type 1, but keep that balance. There is not enough pancreatrophin in this product. This is a great maintenance product. Lynn Mayer and others uses this for the high second sound in the aortic and very successfully. We've seen it reducing that because it has a lot of it. It has kidney support. It has gallbladder support. A great, a great liver biliary drainage product. Here is your liver detoxification product, and this relationship between the pituitary and the pancreas. That's great, but you could not take enough of it. With pancreatrophin, you're going to have to take, what did I say in my book? At least three twice a day on an empty stomach. So how many would you have to take of these? Probably 30 a day, 10%. So if my math is correct. So there's nothing wrong with this product. It's a great prophylactic product. It's a great global digestive formulation. Look, stomach, kidneys, gallbladder, liver, pituitary, and pancreas. It's great, but it's not going to do the job. And I know some other teachers use this, they teach this, but in my opinion, I haven't found it to work. Not especially in your extreme cases. So what else were they looking at? From the foregoing, we must answer our three questions as follows. Insulin does not represent all the useful material found in the pancreas. See, they were seeing there's something, we can't just give people insulin. Pancreas by mouth, pancreas glandular extracts they were using is effective in experimental work. That's the second piece. So you can't just use insulin. Pancreas glandulars, they didn't know about protomorphogens then. They know that it's effective. The limitations of insulin control can be supplemented by oral pancreas therapy. There's the gold. There's the gold line right there. The limitations of insulin control can be supplemented by oral pancreas therapy. You can give clients zinc and chromium and B and other things, but unless you give them the pancreas protomorphogen, you're not going to complete what the body needs. Thousands of clinical experiences with various products confirm these answers. This was in the 1920s. Where are we here? 1925. They knew it. So there's the pancreas. Well, how does the liver tie into this? The liver is essential, and I already talked when I gave you my little outline of glycogen, is where the management of glycogen, of glucose, through the management of glucagon, that's stored sugar, not active sugar, all happens in the liver. Glucagon causes the liver to convert stored sugar into glucose, which is released into the bloodstream. So just focusing on just the pancreas, the B vitamins, the minerals is not enough. The liver is a huge part of this. And this is why Mark taught recently, and I have taught before, that the use of liver support products in type 1, type 2, especially milk thistle. Milk thistle, if I don't get to it, has a regulating effect. It actually regulates how that glucose is released. By the way, beta food also does too. AF beta food or straight beta food is even more potent. It also helps to regulate that release. So The liver is essential to glucose homeostasis by controlling the balance between hepatic glucose production and glucose utilization. Wow. By other tissues. There it is. The liver's the key to this balance, this beautiful dance between glucagon and insulin. Here it is. It is the major organ that metabolizes and regulates fructose, other sugars, most other foods, alcohol, poisons, toxins, and a multitude of other nutrients such as copper and iron. Refined foods deplete the body of nutrients required for liver function, including B complex. Here we're back at it again. Manganese, calcium, and more. Liver disease is associated with abnormalities of glucose tolerance. Should I read that again? Liver disease is associated with the abnormalities of glucose tolerance and insulin sensitivity. Liver damage introduces storage of iron. There you go. There's your hemochromatosis, everyone. There's your one-liner for that. Liver damage introduces storage of iron. We'll talk about hemochromatosis, I'm sure, as we go along here, leading to further liver breakdown. The ability of the pancreas to secrete insulin was impaired in rats fed a diet containing fructose and inadequate copper. There was also abnormal glucose tolerance. Many Americans, about a third, take supplements of isolated unnatural iron, while 60%, over half, take synthetic isolated ascorbic acid. Both supplements can disrupt copper levels in the body. Any systemic isolated supplement can lead to the deficits of nutritional components, protect the liver, pancreas, blood vessel walls, and more. Wow, that's just so well put. Because when we don't, and our clients, if we cannot teach them this, that food is the answer. Bad food destroys, and it destroys a lot of the factors that make insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity determines whether it's there or not. So here's another for Dr. Lee. This is Dr. Lee in 1949, Los Angeles, California, Academy of Applied Nutrition. Sugar is useful as a flavoring or sweetening in food, but its primary function, while it is a relatively pure carbohydrate, it ranks secondary to starchy foods as a source of energy of calories. We customarily look to starch carrying foods for our sustaining foods necessary in larger amounts by those who use their muscles in manual labor and other exercise. For it is first principle nutrition that only increase requirement in food. I didn't want to read that. Sorry. After the blood sugar glucose reaches its destination at the liver or muscle cell, it is then converted into a non-diffusible form, glycogen, phosphagen, two large molecular assemblies that will not leak or diffuse out of the cell. The glucose stage is only temporary. And insulin is the enzymatic conversion agent that eliminates the glucose from the blood and stows it away in the tissues. So you can read this through. What did I want to say? Oh, yes, this is good. So why have we reached this point in Western society? Why? Dr. Lee wrote about this, talked about it, screamed about it. And here it is. The statistically rapid rise in diabetes mellitus in this country is alarming. By the way, he predicted that by the turn of the 21st century, half the people in this country will be diabetics. I think that's almost true. We'd have to look at that number. One cause has been reported in these pages before. The action of synthetic sugar, dextrose, corn syrup, is unique among sugars. No other sugar is capable of causing diabetes when fed in large amounts to test animals. It's the synthetic sugars, not the natural sugars. When incurably diabetic test animals are desired for experimental use, it has been found that small dosages of alloxan, ALLOXAN, will be quickly destroyed, will quickly destroy the islets of Langerhans in the pancreas without disturbing the other body tissues. The animals thereby become permanently diabetic. What is this alloxan? Well, it's a poison. Where does it come from? Bleach, chlorine. Yes, with definite certainty, alloxan is formed by the action of oxidizing agents such as chlorine, bleach white flour, everyone, chlorine oxides, xanthine. Xanthine, I'm sorry, is part of the vitamin E complex, a normal constituent of tissues, muscle, liver, pancreas, thymus, spleen, and of the urine, which carries 1%, and a common foods like cereals, malt. There's a small amount of it in there, but used over time, everyone, it destroys the pancreas cells. And of course, evidently, there's some chemical reaction that happens with the vitamin E part of these foods that people are eating. So when we think of why diabetes is so rampant, now you know a big piece of this puzzle that Lee fought for years and was ignored. So here's an article on silymarin, milk thistle, which you can read through. This is a key, the key herb for maintaining that release of glucose into the blood, managing that. So, and I think this is a duplicate, which I apologize for. I'll fix that when I send the notes to you. And then, of course, Gymnema. Gymnema is an Ayurvedic, I believe, word that means sugar destroyer. So you will see, and there's a little bit in Judith DeCava's article on diabetes that I will also send you. I better write all these down. Lynn or Monica, just make a note for me. These articles I need to give so they can read the whole article. It is taking even one per meal. They're saying 1 tablet twice daily. I like to recommend this, 1 tablet 3 times with each meal. It not only curbs your desire and for more glucose, more sugar, it actually prevents, again, the beta cells from dying and helps new cells in the liver, in the pancreas to form. And then, of course, you can read Dr. Lee's perspective on hepatotrophin itself. And the one thing that I wanted to say, because we speak so much of when we talk about diabetes, the pancreas being involved, right? If you look at Diaplex, it has pancreatrophin and pituitrophin and pancreatrophin. Well, here it is. Here's the reason why Dr. Lee did, because if there's something off with the pituitary, it's going to affect the pancreas. Diabetes accompanied with hypertension, high sugar, high blood pressure, is a different matter. The hyperglycemia here may be done to the oversecretion of adrenaline. So here is what we have always spoken about. We've dialogued in our classes with each other about the connection with high blood pressure and the adrenals. And this ties in with pancreas, with pituitary, pancreas, and the adrenals. So you can also read this through, and how if the pituitary is off, it's going to affect the pancreas. And it's also going to disrupt that balance between the pancreas and the adrenals, because they also balance each other quite a bit. Now, just to end up here, I want to give you some other thoughts that are in the also consider in my book. But one of the things that people with type 1 and 2 diabetes are always looking at is what sweeteners they can have. And of course, they shouldn't have any. And you can, as much as you can program your glycemic index to be craving sweets, you can still do the same to program it not to crave sweets. Now, I've spoken to you all about the two primary substances that you can give for that is the B vitamins. And now I mentioned the Gymnema will reduce that craving. In fact, if you get a bottle of the Gymnema liquid, I forgot to mention that, and you take a teaspoon of it and then chew on a taste chocolate or sweet, you can't taste it. There's no taste at all. It's neutral. So that's a real help for people that want to eat a lot of sugar all day, is to use the liquid. It has a little alcohol in it, but just a teaspoon just before meals or even in between meals to stop those cravings. But your B vitamin, and then of course the other is to help the liver with bile salts. Bile salts will reduce the craving for glucose. Now, we all have this, and that product is Cholecol, by the way, excuse me. And I would give them even just one per meal, or one just as they begin eating. And you'll see people won't want to eat as much, and they won't want to have dessert after. So Cholecol. And you can go up to 2 per meal. You know when you're getting too much bile salts that your bowels will loosen up. So just be aware of that. That's why I like to start them with 1 per meal. That won't do that. But if you have this battle, as I do with clients and recommendations to people, they want something sweet. Honey has been talked about, and particularly Tupelo honey from that southeastern United States. And here is an article that Lee put in the Vitamin News. This gentleman found that the administration of equivalent amounts of honey and sugar to diabetic patients, the honey gave a remarkably lower blood sugar curve. And it did not, diabetics did not disturb the sugar balance. Summer honey is slightly superior to winter honey. So I thought I'd mention that. So the other is a product that's in my book, in other products to be used, that has been used for hundreds of years, especially in the southern part of the United States for diabetes, is a product called Fortil B12. And you'll see that if you look at the label on a few products that Standard Process carries, Tillandsia is in there. And I remember John saying that Dr. Lee found when he was formulating that whenever he added Tillandsia, it made the product more effective. the results were upgraded. The outcome was increased. A good outcome was increased by the use of this substance called Spanish moss. The mysterious beauty of Spanish moss, which has added charm to the southern landscapes since the days of Longfellow's Evangeline, may have yielded one of its secrets to researchers at Purdue and Northeastern Louisiana universities. Cajun healers of southern Louisiana have long known that a tea made from Spanish moss, Tillandsia, was good for diabetes. Now a potential anti-diabetic, now a potential diabetic compound. So you can read the rest of this. And remember, the other factor with this is considered a substance of longevity. And Dr. Lee, when he used to get the resources from down south, this Spanish moss, by the way, it is not a moss. It looks like a moss. I toured in the South and I asked and studied this. And it's not, it is from the pineapple family. It is not a moss. It just looks like moss because it hangs from the tree. It has nothing to do with the tree. And the Spaniards brought it in from Spain, from Europe. And it grew ever since. And it loves moisture, but it's actually from the pineapple family. But it was known and is known today to be a substance of longevity. So just so you realize that, because we're always looking for other things that we can do for people. So, and I already told you the story about using cardiotrophin for sugar in the muscle before bed. Not going to go into that anymore. And then here is your inositol. Now in my book, you will see I use inositol in my shake every morning. That's my sweetener. It does have a carbohydrate element to it. This range of B vitamins is part of the B complex. But look what Dr. Lee used it for: diabetes mellitus, muscular dystrophies, gallbladder, liver, low thyroid, and muscular pains. This is known as the muscle sugar vitamin. Very effective in sciatica, by the way. This is off subject, but this and St. John's wort are my two go-to products for sciatica, which is in my book. So, and this is a quote, this is a quote from Dr. Lee. Diabetics can use honey, especially Tupelo honey, without disturbing their blood sugar. Now, I don't use a lot of honey, but I keep it in the house for others. And as the bottle gets down, it never crystallizes because the amount of glucose in there is so low. So it does not disturb. So this is a great article you can reprint for your clients on walking, and which I'm not going to read to you, and we're missing a page too. So we'll fix that for you. So that is my hour here on type 1, type 2 diabetes. And now, if you want, I can take some questions. We're really just on time for once in my life.
Yes, Joseph. The chat box didn't have the download of this. Oh, now it does. No, this is Vitamin News.
No, because some of these slides, I was rushed to put this together. I got behind this week because I also had to write an article for Saline River Press. So I just ran out of time and Christmas shopping and whatever. So I will load these notes on my website that is almost done, the page on my website with this recording, okay? So
yeah,
and I'll let you know. And that leads me to next year. I am still going to teach about my book twice a month, and I'm going to teach the heart sound. That's on Thursdays. That's going to be on the first and third Thursday of the month on my book. So my first lecture related to my book and the protocols is the 7th, will be the 7th. And then I'm only going to teach twice a month now on the heart sound recorder, and that will be the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of the month. You'll receive the email reminder of that. It's just that I've gotten so busy with my book and handling other things. I'm going down, and I've been teaching 2 to 3 times a week, as you well know, for the last 5 years. So I'm just going to be teaching once a week now. So either HSR on Tuesdays and adjuvant protocols for healings on Thursdays. But I am going to be writing more articles that you can get through Saline River Press. And those can be sent to your clients on these subjects. I'll write an article on this type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So anyone else?
Are you
Joseph,
going
it's Lynn.
Hey,
I think you might have misspoken. You're going to do all Thursdays, right? The 1st and 3rd will be adjuvants for healing, and
No, the 1st and 3rd is, I'm only teaching adjuvants for protocols for healing twice a month now.
right. But on both of your classes are going to be on Thursdays, I thought, right?
For adjuvant protocols for healing?
Yes, it's going to
Yeah.
be the 1st and 3rd Thursday,
Yeah,
and then
in January, as an example, will be the 7th. I'm looking at my calendar, and the 21st. Yep. And
okay, I'm
then,
just correcting you because you just said Tuesdays for one and Thursdays for another. So I just wanted to clarify.
no, I said, well, I thought I said, so forgive me if I didn't. Tuesday is for heart sound recorder.
Right.
That's the 2nd and 4th. And then the
Oh,
adjuvant
okay.
protocols for healing is the 1st and the 3rd. Yeah.
Okay, then I misunderstood here. I thought you were going to do it all on Thursdays. Yeah, so I apologize.
Listen, most of the time, I don't even understand what I'm saying, so that's okay.
Hey, Joe, it's
Yes.
Paige. I was going to ask, is it possible for maybe at the beginning of the month to send out a note for like January dates? Because I think sometimes I know I'm guilty of it to say the
Oh,
first and
yeah, that's a
third.
great idea. I'll send you out a schedule for the month. Yes.
Yeah, like, for each month, that would be really helpful. Then we all are on the same page.
Sure, I would be happy to do that for you. Yep.
Thanks, Joe.
and are you teaching next Thursday or not?
Oh, thank you. No, I am not going to teach for the next 2 Thursdays because I have a wonderful family that doesn't see me much. So I'm going to try to see them. So one is Christmas Eve and one is New Year's Eve as it falls. So no, I will not teach for the next 2 Thursdays. So the first Thursday in January is the 7th. And that Thursday I'll teach adjuvant protocols for healing. Yes. Thank you for that reminder. Yeah.
Joseph,
Yes.
this is Kari.
Hey.
Would you
I know
just-
I owe you a phone call. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Well, mostly I was going to ask you about type 1 diabetes in children and antibiotics.
Right. Okay. Yes. And that's why I said, let me just mute everybody out and you can come back in here.
Okay.
It's got a lot of background noise. All right. You can come back in, Kari.
Okay.
So the main thing that you have to do with this child, how old is this child?
She's 5.
Yeah. Is you've got to get them checked for parasites.
Okay.
More
Do you
than
think-
likely. More than likely.
Do you
And
think-
and the child should not stay on I don't know why they're on antibiotics, but they shouldn't stay on antibiotics.
No,
So-
no, this child was given 3 rounds of antibiotics back in February, and the mother is wondering if there's a connection between these 2 things.
Oh, why was the child given antibiotics?
I think she had a sinus infection.
Sinus, okay. Well, no, to my knowledge, antibiotics, I have never read that it's implicated in the onset of type 1 diabetes. No. No. Now, remember that, I'm not a big believer or advocate of blaming it on genes, but I will say this, if the father has not been healthy, the 2 things that cross over in the genetic pool from the father is diabetes and asthma, unfortunately.
Huh.
And I learned that from Linda Highwood. Linda Highwood? No, Angela Highwood. And and she had a whole series on these studies that were done. Yeah. And it unfortunately, that weakness comes from the male in the equation. So, but I go by what Dr. Lee said. So I would definitely rule out, because Kari, if you can catch the parasites, parasites cryptosporidium can come from water. That doesn't have to come from food or traveling abroad. You can get it through, drinking out of a mountain stream or a well. Who knows? So you can get these parasites, even microparasites. They don't have to be big ones. It doesn't have to be a tapeworm. But I would rule that out first. I would get her to that, or run that test through diagnostics. The GI panel too, you probably already used them first. And then, but as far as to answer your question, antibiotics, no. Does that weaken the system? Of course. 70 to 90% of your immune system is in the gut biome, but that's not going to cause, that may aggravate or lead to, that may put more burden on the system, but that's not going to be a primary cause, no. And
Okay.
after you're done with the antibiotics, just load her with probiotics, the lactans, the lactic acid yeast. Go ahead.
Do you think that it might be possible that after those rounds of antibiotics, it disrupted her gut to the point where she was more susceptible to getting parasites?
Whenever you weaken any part of the body, yes. Yep. Remember what I read to you earlier today? They were saying that, that people that don't eat right, they don't have these, they imbalance copper in their system that affects diabetes. They imbalance vitamin C. If they take ascorbic acid, that can lead to imbalances in pancreatic function and liver function. Yeah. Everything leads to everything else. And, our job and my job is, as we're still in this world, we have to teach them these truths about food and how to live differently than how people are living. And so, yes, definitely, that could lead, definitely, that imbalance in the gut biome could weaken the immune system and make her more susceptible to other breakdowns. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joseph.
Especially, by the way, liver. Remember how important the liver is in this situation. So you've got to get these supplements to her, the pancreatrophin, and if nothing else, the milk thistle.
Yeah.
I would love for you to, now, Gymnema is important. That's going to be harder to, that's a very bitter herb for you to grind up. This is going to be fine to grind up, and so is this. And the B core, if she likes the taste, we all love the taste, she could just chew those up. The Cataplex GTF, I believe, does that come in a capsule? Does anybody know off the top? It's not a product.
I don't think so.
And you could grind that up too.
Or tablets.
They're tablet. Okay, so you could grind that up, but you've got to get those into her a couple times a day. I mean, if the child is home right now, which most children are, I would do 3 a day. I would do, 1 pancreatrophin. I would make this little, ground up blend of pancreatrophin, milk thistle, GTF, and the B core, or you could grind up the G. Remember, I read, G may be more specific for her at this point if it's just a recent onset. So you could grind up those 4, though G is not going to have as good a flavor as the B for sure. So you could grind that up, and I would do it and give it to her in a little paste in like, you know, just a tablespoon of, you could even blend it up with a little, do you get whole milk up there? I just don't want to get her, because of the protomorphogen, I don't want to get her digestive system turned on.
We don't have access to whole milk, to
Okay.
unpasteurized whole milk.
Well,
yet.
then don't use milk. You could use maybe a little coconut milk, something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
And just mix that up into a little paste and have, or applesauce, or just a tablespoon of some yogurt, but not a lot of sugar. And I would do that, you know, an hour before lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I think you would see that at least you would begin to see some stabilization of that. Because more than
great, thank
likely, if she's type 1, they're going to have her on insulin if they don't
Yeah,
already.
absolutely.
But you've got to rule out, I can't tell you how many clients I've had that it was parasites.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Joseph.
You're welcome.
Joseph, I have a daughter-in-law with type 1 diabetes, diagnosed at age 5. She's now 32, and I will absolutely say it's parasites and liver. She always has huge rash on her right cheek, you know. which
There you go. Yep.
she eats terribly and drinks alcohol, and
Yeah.
you know, now she's having a very difficult pregnancy, you know, and they don't listen, you know, when it's your family, but parasites I absolutely agree with, and protozoa, which is a type of parasite as well.
Yep,
So
it is.
protozoas,
Sue, the prophet is never welcomed in her own country.
I live it every day. Every day.
I know.
Thing is, you gave a great pearl today, and that is, I work a lot with Lyme disease patients, but let's even talk about ALS and multiple sclerosis and
Yeah.
Parkinson's. They're all degenerative neurological diseases.
Mm-hmm.
You said when there's low B6, which all these people usually do have low B6,
Yeah.
it causes significant increases in the insulin and the glucose levels. I just couldn't figure out why very thin patients come to me with high glucose all the time. And that's the pearl right there, is the low B6, because that's the correlation, which is an awesome pearl for today.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, there's a lot, you know, and when I put these together, because when I teach the HSR, I don't go into this detail. That's why I am so loving, you know, doing this whole explanation, because now I'm going back into what I forgot myself. So this is very fulfilling for me. I hope you all, as you say, are getting something out of it. One little pearl, you know, if you could put one little thing together with the rest of what we know, it makes such a difference. So yes, I agree with you.
Huge. Yeah. Thank you. And I'm sorry that you're cutting back on hours personally. That's just my greedy self, because
I know. A man or a woman needs to know the limitations, and I just have to, I'll be 69 in a couple months. I just need to, I don't want to retire, but I just have to back it off a little bit.
It's understandable. Thank you. Thank you. And one other quick question, Joseph. Sciatica, you said St. John's wort, and I'm just curious why St. John's wort. I know it peels off the layers for viruses, but why?
Yeah, but it's a nerve. That is the main herb on this planet for restoring nerve function or nerve damage. I know it. It's for nerve restoration, and it is for viruses. So St. John's wort, yeah. Oh, sciatica, I'll tell you, it works.
I'm dealing with sciatica, and I love St. John's wort when I'm on it. Even Viranon, I'll take that, and I feel much better, and now I know why. So thank you. Another pearl. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody should be on some form, either the Viranon or straight St. John's wort. I mean, it helps you to sleep, helps with the viruses. I mean, there's so much that it does. Yeah, that's a great herb. Yeah.
This is Barbara. May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. 65-year-old woman, an acute flare-up of arthritis in multiple joints, and seems to be related to drinking alcohol and falling off her gluten-free, dairy-free diet and too much sugar for the last 6 months. And so I just wanted to know what you would do for that with this arthritic flare. She's in pretty bad shape. She might need a knee replacement.
Well, so arthritis, if it's osteo, if it's in the joints, it's more obviously osteo or in the bone. So that is an autoimmune disease. So first of all, you've got to get her on the protomorphogen for the bone and for the joint, and that is ostrophin PMG. That's number one. Number two is you have to reduce the inflammation. So John Courtney, whenever we talked about either rheumatoid or osteoarthritis, John Courtney said that is known and was known back along the way, which I'm trying to bring to the fore for all of you, as the cooked food diseases. So if you get her on more of a paleo diet with vegetables and protein, she cannot get off the wagon. So that is, she can't fall off the wagon. She's just got to work with that. And then, of course, your supplements for inflammation obviously are going to be your turmeric forte, or my favorite, Boswellia complex, which has some turmeric in it. So those, and you can take like the Boswellia complex, you could take 2-3 times a day, and that will keep the pain level down. But if she does I would do the 10-day inflammation cleanse that Standard Process has. And you'll see, how many cleanses have I done with people in my career? Thousands. And the one thing they say, Joe, the pain has left the building. It has left my body. So she's got to get off of the inflammatory foods, the closer to nature, and which, listen, I understand right now, a lot of people have fallen off the wagon. We're all going for the comfort food, but there are good comfort foods. We don't have to get into devitalized foods. So, and then of course you want to make sure if she's got a joint issue, there's a couple of things for that. One is Ligaplex 1. If you don't have my book, it's in there, but if you don't, okay, so you can look up osteoarthritis. If it's all over her body, like galloping rheumatism, then that would be osteoarthritis. And then I think I have a protocol for joint breakdown or joint decay. But if she's going for the surgery, a lot of people do. The other thing you can do for the knees is you can use the rooster comb injection. So you can put that in the knees. You have to have it done once a year or twice a year. And it works. It does wear off. But if you don't want that very dangerous surgery of knee surgery, boy, that's a risky thing.
Is Ligaplex 2 any good for?
No, I would use Ligaplex 1. 2 is going to be, again, just like I said about the Diaplex. No offense to Ligaplex 2, it's great, but initially you want the Ligaplex 1, okay, because it has more manganese in it. It has more of the vitamin E in it that you need for joints, and it has ostrophin in it. And A and C. Yep.
Okay. I recently ordered Cataplex F for another patient, and I was surprised that it came in the little skinny brown tablets, whereas the last time I got it, it was in a gel cap. Was there something different?
No, it is different. There are 2 forms of vitamin F. There's Cataplex F tablets, which is a dried form of the linoleic, and arachidonic acid. So there's 3 ranges of fatty acids, plus a little iodine, and actually a little prostate tissue in there. So that's Cataplex F tablets. So people that burp up oils have trouble handling oils, which is a gallbladder indicator, they have no trouble with the F tablets. So we prefer to use those.
Oh,
The F pearls, which they call gel caps now, that is just basically what's the oil? With a little bit of Orchex in there.
Is it flaxseed?
Flaxseed oil, thank you. It's flaxseed oil and Orchex. So in there, yeah.
okay. Thank you so much.
So the reason they have the two is, which is, you know, the flaxseed oil is a good range of fatty acids, but it doesn't have the arachidonic acid, which if a person's liver is not converting those oils, then that's a problem, because then they're not using the fatty acids at all. And your extreme of that is your multiple sclerosis, MS patients. That's so the arachidonic acid is already digested. The body doesn't have to do anything. So that's why the F tablets, in my opinion, is a better coverage range of fatty acids. So,
Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, Joe. It's Janine.
hey,
Hi. Could you talk to me about your lifestyle recommendations where you have oatmeal therapy? I thought that feeding oatmeal to diabetics would spike their sugar. Could
it
you?
does not. It's the only grain. And there's a slide that I put in there where Dr. Lee talks about it, and it didn't get in. My presentation got a little bound up here, and I'll do the full. I'll get that to you when I put it on my website. But no, oatmeal. Now this, by the way, Janine, it's not 100%, and Lee says that. Some cannot tolerate it, but a lot of diabetics, they can take oatmeal and it does not raise their blood sugar. It's the one of the only grains that it doesn't affect their carbohydrate regulation. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I never knew that. And you know where I got that from? I got that from Nicole Ekman in Fort Collins, who's a registered dietitian. She is a great friend. I haven't talked to her in quite a while, but she used to teach for us, and she's very knowledgeable. She's the one that told me about it. And then I read some of Dr. Lee's things about it. So.
Well, that's interesting because I just told my diabetic patient he couldn't eat oatmeal anymore because it would spike his blood sugar.
Well, you are correct, and you're wise to do that. But listen, no sugar or honey on it. That's the problem with oatmeal. If they're going to put just some nice butter, some organic butter on it with salt and pepper, that's one thing. That's how I eat my oatmeal. But if they're going to put dairy and sugar in it, that's where you go wrong. But oatmeal itself, which again, people, they have that program that everything has to be sweet. But oatmeal has its own wonderful flavor, as I say, with butter and salt and pepper is how I eat. You know, if I eat millet or oatmeal, which I don't anymore, but I used to in the morning, which is a very fulfilling breakfast. You know, if you don't get the sugar and the milk in there, pasteurized and milk, and just take it, you know, plain with the butter, it works really well. And it, according to Lee and according to Nicole, most diabetics, they do fine with it. Yeah.
Joseph,
Yes.
may I? It's Monica. So the other thing that can really help with oats is in terms of digesting and reducing the blood sugar impact is to soak your oats before you cook them. So this is a traditional cooking method that has been used all over the world for a very long time, which almost no one does in the US. So, you know, if you soak your oats overnight with warm water and either some whey or some apple cider vinegar or some lemon juice if you don't do dairy, just a bit, and then you cook it. it really is an incredibly pre-digested thing. And in fact, everybody should be doing it, not just diabetics. And then, of course, as you said, you must modulate the sugar impact with fat, which is good grass-fed butter or ghee or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So that kind of soaking, just so people know, is on a chart through Celine River Press called Preparing Whole Grains and Beans for nutrient availability and maximum digestion or ease of digestion.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Mona. That's great.
Sure.
Wow, good information.
Joe,
Yes.
hi, it's Constance. How about adding some cinnamon into that wonderful cooked?
Oh, wonderful. Great idea. Wow. Now you're talking. See how when we put our heads together. Now make sure that cinnamon isn't cinnamon and sugar though. This
Right.
is where, people need to read labels. But yes, in fact, that's so funny you said that, Constance, because it made me think of my younger daughter who used to love oatmeal with cinnamon on it. And with a little butter. Yeah, that's right.
And add a little honey, Tupelo honey.
No. Oh, well, the Tupelo you could. And
I always cook it with a little bit more water, so it's really not tight and more loose.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And also, people like to grab that instant stuff. You got to keep pounding it in. You got to cook it.
Yes.
So
it's
what
good
is the
to actually make your own food. Yes. Let's go ahead.
what does the beta glucan content mean? And can you get that in other grains as well?
That, Monica, do you want to explain that? I think that's just the type of, again, as Constant is saying, don't buy the quick stuff. You go get
It's just in oats. As far as I know, it's just in oats, and it needs to be, traditional rolled oats or steel cut oats, but not instant oats, certainly.
Yeah. If somebody wants to Google beta glucan right now, they can
Joseph,
read it.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So regarding this, I don't have a diagnosis for this patient of diabetes, but
is it 1 or 2?
No, I don't have that. So I'm just,
okay. Go ahead.
Giving you some symptoms and in the meantime, until blood work. So they've had some numbness in their extremities. They're not overweight. There's been some bowel issues as well, but there's like when they wake up, there's even pain in the feet specifically and numbness, and then it goes away. But if they lay on a part of the extremity at night, it actually is all numb. So there's an issue with blood circulation. And let me think. They also have their menstrual cycle. Let's see, they're in their 40s, and they have headaches around. It just cycles differently, but it's always a really bad headache around the cycle. So I don't know if you can put those together in general. And they're on a good supplement protocol, so I don't know what's going on.
Well, I wouldn't say that's all of those symptoms are one thing, but when you've got an imbalance at the hormonal level, it sounds like she's got too much estrogen. So if you use the progesterone herbal product, Chaste Tree, give her 2 twice a day, and Simplex F, that's a good place to start. Now, if you think there is a sugar implication, then you could give her Paraplex, pituitary, thyroid, pancreas, adrenal. Now, that's not going to have the full range of the amount of pancreatrophin that you need, but it will, but you could give her 4 of those twice a day. If you did the Paraplex and the Chaste Tree to begin with, and just give it a few weeks, you'd need to give it 3 cycles. So probably 3 months you're going to have to see, unless you're checking her blood sugar. But those symptoms don't sound like
they're together.
Yeah.
So I'm really concerned about the numbness of why the whole body's going numb on that side, but also she's had
that could be structural. I mean, that, when a person lays down, if they're not fully balanced structurally, they can do that. I mean, it's just like you know, you get your arm in the wrong position, it falls asleep. So something is pinched, you know, but
Okay.
I don't know, you know.
And then, so speaking towards, so she does have, I remember she has facial hair, and chase tree in the past has caused her headaches. So do you still keep that? And I haven't checked her saliva yet.
Yeah, sometimes when you first use chase tree, you can get some of those symptomatology. That's called a pituitary headache. Yep. And
Okay.
so just give her 1 twice a day or 1 a day for the first week, 2 a day, and then build her up over a month to 4 per day. But as far as I know, unless you get to 4 a day in chase tree, for a lot of these cases, it's not going to work. And it does take 3 cycles, 3 menstrual cycles. Yeah.
And with the numbness, just if it was a diabetic type of, I haven't checked the blood sugar again for, but what?
Well, that would be both feet. That wouldn't be one.
No, it is. It's both feet.
Well, the simple thing is just to do a blood panel on her. That's the simple
Okay,
thing.
and then if we find, then it would just be, it would be something like ginkgo or something. It would be more towards what you were talking about, correct? I'm just thinking blood flow as well, but no.
Well, before you apply any nutrition, you got to find out what you're working with. So do the blood work, find out what she's got going, then you could start to apply. But
thank you, Jeff.
does this only, the numbness only happens around her cycle time?
It's been going on for months now, and
every night when she lays down,
yeah, she doesn't really want to go to a medical doctor, so I'm kind of
she needs to go. She needs to go.
Okay.
Yeah, she needs to make sure you don't want that to get more serious. So she can't lay flat. How does she sleep then? Standing up?
No, she actually lays flat. It's fine. It's on one side or the other that will go numb.
Yeah, that sounds like it's structural.
Okay.
To me.
Okay, thank you.
Joseph,
Yes.
what is your website address where all of these are being put?
They're not on there yet. It's just days. And he's had his own issues physically. But I'm going to give you a link to that page. So I'll give you, I'll put that on my emails that go out once we get it set up.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Welcome. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Have a blessed holiday season. Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Question, Bob Kidosi, how you doing?
Good.
Diffuse arthritis throughout the body and even bone loss in the joints. I know you were saying before about autoimmune. It's relative. It was abusive with drugs in the past, but like when you're losing calcium, or I mean, when calcium is being deposited in the joints, is that still just an autoimmune, or do you give? How would you treat that to get the calcium out of the joint?
Well, you have to use the right type of calcium. So the body, if it doesn't have the calcium phosphate for the bones and joints, it will use whatever calcium it can put in there, which ends up being not the right type of calcium and the body tends to build it up in there. So you need calcifood. That's where you're going to give them the calcium phosphate that then the body can lay down and use it properly. So that's number one. But if the body is laying down calcium anywhere, from the lens of the eye to the joints, then you need to regulate mineral absorption, and how you want minerals to absorb where it needs to, and you don't want minerals to absorb where it's not needed or wanted by the body. And that is a spleen issue. That's a spleen issue and a vitamin K. Now, recently people are saying K2. do not use K2 without the full vitamin K, because you're just throwing your money away. So the regulation of minerals throughout the body is chlorophyll pearls, 6 a day, and spleen PMG, 6 a day, and calcifood powder or wafers, and time. This takes time. So this isn't going to happen in a few weeks. This is going to happen in a few months. But that's the way to, and then, Bob, you have to remove the inflammation out of their life, not just their diet, but their life. So alcohol, drugs, as you say, inflammation could be anger, mental stress, too much, physical stuff. So they have to you have to help them find that balance and encourage them. And of course, chiropractic care, acupuncture, whatever you're doing, massage. Yeah. So.
Okay. How about the phosphate liquid? Is that in
no,
part
no, that is specifically not for joints. That is for the blood. That's to balance calcium in the blood, not the joints. Phosphate liquid does not affect the joints or the spine. It's used up immediately. When you take that goes into the blood and it's used up immediately. It never stays in the system long enough. No, the phosphorus that you need for the joints is in the calcifood, in the calcium phosphate mineral that's in the bone material, the bone flour itself. Yeah. Right. Great.
Okay.
All right, everyone.
How many of you?
Yes. One more. Oh, you're just saying goodbye. Okay. Blessings to you all on the holidays and in the coming year. And I will talk to you on January the 7th, unless you're on my call next week, which is the 22nd. I'll be on for the Heart Sound Recorder.
God bless
So
you.
you're going to have this
Happy
recorded?
holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Blessings to you all.
God bless you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Are you going to have these recorded on the website, Joe?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, good.